Day to all. Thank you for having me here. I am very honored to be here with you today. My name is Wilfredo Guerrero. I am a technical advisor for the Instituto Salvadoreño del Cemento y del Concreto, or the Salvadoran Cement and Concrete Institute. Um, Today, we're going to talk about measures adopted by the construction industry of El Salvador in regards to the pandemic of COVID-19. El Salvador is the smallest country in Central America with an area of 21,000 square kilometers and a population of 6.5 million people that live in El Salvador. There are about 2 to 3 million people living outside of the country. El Salvador has borders with Guatemala and Honduras, and to the south, we have the Pacific Ocean as our border. The GDP in 2018 was 26.1 billion US dollars, and it is estimated that during the first 6 months of 2020, the GDP has contracted 9.3%. When the pandemic started, our borders were immediately closed, both land and airport, and sea as well. And on March 21st, a mandatory quarantine was implemented by the government of El Salvador. Most of the industrial sector, including the construction industry, was shut down. Only the pharmaceutical and food industry kept work functioning as they provided essential products and services during the pandemic. Service providers for maintenance and construction of essential infrastructure could operate with special permits. In our case, we were asked by a company that is developing a wind power project here in El Salvador. We were asked to conduct some tests on their landfills. So through them, we were able to get permits from the government to be able to transport our equipment to the site of the project. On June 18th, the construction industry was reactivated. Although only 30% of the workforce was able to get back to work, of the construction workforce, because of the restrictions, only 30%. Since the start of the quarantine, the Salvadoran Chamber of Construction, CASALCO, started working on health and safety protocols for the industry's construction workers. Through the Inter-American Federation of the Construction Industry, they researched what member countries were doing to adapt to the new reality of COVID-19. Based on their research, a protocol of preventive measures for the mitigation of COVID-19 for the construction industry was drafted and presented to the government in April. This protocol served as a template for other sectors. And this is the protocol that was first implemented. This is the Ministry of Labor and Social Security of El Salvador, and this is the protocol of preventive actions to combat the disease of COVID-19 in construction sites. And this is the Chamber of Construction. They have a magazine, and they were the ones that started to work on this protocol so that the construction industry could get back to operating as soon as possible. For construction companies, the government required the implementation of health and safety protocols in offices and at construction sites. Some of the prevention measures adopted are social distancing, at least 2 meters distance between workers, mandatory wearing of respiratory masks, face shields, goggles, home office, reducing face-to-face activities. So instead of having a meeting with other staff physically at your workplace or at the project site, you would try to do it via phone calls, emails, or virtual meetings like Zoom, GoToMeeting, Teams, etc. Splitting the workforce into shifts, reducing concentration of workers at the office and job site. At our organization, our team is of 13 people. So we were able to easily divide it into 2 groups. And while one group is at the office during the week, the other group is doing home office, and we are alternating every other week. We are still doing this, and we have been successful in that we have prevented our workers from getting sick. Important also is the access to hygiene products. Um, you need to have hand sanitizer, soap, and water readily available for workers at the office and also at the construction site. Cleaning surfaces such as desks, door handles, phones, keyboards, and office tools at least twice a day. Training of management staff and workers about adopted measures to prevent exposure to virus. This is important because they need to know what are the measures that the company or have has adopted at the construction site or the office so that they can keep safe. And constant communication with workers is a must. Workers classified as vulnerable to COVID-19 needed to stay at home. This includes persons 60 years or older, pregnant women, and anyone with a chronic disease, which can be diabetes, heart conditions, and any other disease which we know that make them vulnerable to COVID-19. Temperature is taken with infrared thermometers on the forehead when entering the office or construction site, and a record is kept. Also, well, lately, since technology has been, well, I say technology has been advancing here, I have also seen that they are using infrared cameras to instantly see if you what is your temperature range. Meetings of more than 10 people are not allowed, and we are required to follow the government's indications for public spaces. How has COVID-19 affected the construction industry in El Salvador? Well, this is a graph showing the apparent consumption of cement in thousands of 42.5 kilogram bags. And this is the start of 2016. We can see the trend here. It's growing year by year. But then because of the pandemic, this is in March, February, it starts to go down to just 1,036.7 bags of 42.5 kilogram bags of cement, which is a record low. This data goes all the way back to 2005, and this is the lowest point. So it really impacted this indicator of the construction industry. It was really impacted by COVID. The government's investment in infrastructure was reduced. These are the expenditures for infrastructure for the Ministry of Works of El Salvador. We can see this is the total for this item, which is infrastructure. In 2019, 17 million, almost $18 million US dollars were spent in invested in infrastructure. In 2020, we only have 6 million US dollars invested, which is a difference of 11, almost 12 million US dollars. We see here that in roads, this is the same trend. In the case of health and environmental sanitation, which is infrastructure related to fixing hospitals, clinics, and also equipment for sanitation of people and utensils, tools, whatever. We see that actually it changed positively in 2020, where this was not an expenditure at all in 2019. Supervision of infrastructure remained, was a little bit more in 2020, and other infrastructure works, which was none at all. So in total, the difference between 2020 and 2019 is less investment in 2020. There was a loss of jobs in the construction industry. 26% of the workers lost their jobs. And when the construction industry was reactivated on July 18th, only 30% of workers were able to get to the job site because of the restrictions in transportation and other restrictions. Only 30% of the workforce was reactivated. Until October, the workforce is finally at 100%. How ISIC adapted to COVID-19? Well, ISIC is an NGO, a non-governmental organization that has advocated for best practices regarding cement and concrete technology in its 35-year history. Our services include technical assessment, calibration of testing equipment, training of construction workers, architects, engineers, investigations, and our laboratory is accredited under ISO 17025. Um, so we train workers in the construction industry, and the Salvadoran Vocational Training Institute is tasked with training the Salvadoran workforce. The annual budget is dependent on mandatory contributions from employers, and funds are allocated to third parties via tender. ESEEC holds free webinars, but we also participate in some of these funds in the following topics: construction of buildings, bridges and roads, um, safety and quality control in construction, soils and construction materials, environment, topography. So what changed? Well, before the pandemic, training was held on site. Uh, we have we had and still have free webinars which were projected for visitors to watch live on site. And training courses were held for INSAFORP and private release, but they had to come here to our offices. And because of the restrictions that no more than 10 people could be gathered in one place, ESEEC had to adopt virtual meetings and conferences via Zoom to continue its training program. To date, we have completed 23 courses, and we are still doing courses until the middle of December, and we will continue until January and February. So what are the conclusions? Well, COVID-19 pandemic has affected the construction industry in El Salvador and worldwide, as we all know. This is a given. COVID-19 is a serious pandemic, and it has had a huge impact on the construction industry and the economy. But we must look for opportunities that allow us to grow or improve our performance. In our case, well, because of this, we had to adopt um, technology like Zoom meetings to hold our virtual courses, and this has allowed us to have a greater reach. So we are able to reach anyone that is interested in taking our courses wherever they are. And they don't have to be here in El Salvador. They can be in Guatemala or Honduras. And we have had some cases where some people have enrolled in our courses from those places, from those countries. And also, now it's easier to have international um, trainers because you just connect. They don't have to leave their country. Just connect to Zoom, and they can give the courses online in real time. And companies have had to adapt, implementing home office to keep operating during quarantine and lockdown. And well, in El Salvador, we don't have a culture of home office or working at home because the idea is that well, before the idea was that if you were working at home, you weren't working at all. But now, because of the pandemic and because of the restrictions on transportation and the quarantine, it was necessary for companies to adopt these technologies to be able to work from home, keep communicated, having all their information available to their employees at all the time with cloud technology, cloud storage. So it has shown us that we can um, work from home and continue to be productive. So it has given us an opportunity to improve in that sense. Well, that is all I have for you today. And if you have any questions, you can contact me on my email, which is on screen. And I am deeply honored to have been invited to this event, and I hope we can do it again. Thank you very much. Namaste.